Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things M365 Compliance. I'm Ryan John Murphy, Compliance Lead at Epic Global, and today we're going to talk about Copilot. And of course, as always, I'm joined by Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Chappell. I'm a Principal Cloud Architect at Cloudway, and I'm a Microsoft MVP. And I'm really interested in Microsoft 365 Copilot, A, from the productivity viewpoint, but B, from, how do we make sure we do this right? How do we make sure we protect our data? And so today we're joined by Alex Pearce, who is hopefully going to try and demystify and help us really get to understand what is Microsoft 365 Copilot and what we need to do to make sure our data is safe. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Nikki, and hello, Ryan. Thank you for having me today. It's a privilege to be on here. Yeah, I'm going to leave you with a headache. I think that's the way I'm going to pitch this little kind of recording with you is that, yes, we've got this buzz that we have of Copilot, but I want to leave you with a headache too. Just to explain myself, I am the Chief Strategist for Microsoft and Education at Softcat, who are the UK's largest value-added reseller. I'm lucky enough to be a 16-time Microsoft MVP. And it's my job to go off and talk about technology in this kind of way, explain it, understand it. I guess when you've spent so much time looking at SharePoint over the years and it became Office 365 and all that kind of thing, you get a great understanding of these technologies and what the dependencies are. Copilot is just a whole set of dependency technologies to help you actually have a correct output. And I look forward to doing a bit of a deep dive with you on that today.
Great. Sounds perfect. And I think from our perspective, being people of compliance, we're excited, but we're also worried about Copilot. And I think you're going to walk us through some slides, Alex, based on your experience, your delivery of it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we kind of just bring those slides up, one of the things I always say is that I was lucky enough to be at the MVP Summit back in April time. Microsoft did a lot of talking about AI and Copilot. And the first thing I actually, my question was to them was, look, you've got this technology. Look, you're always going to dog food it. You're always going to try it. Tell me about the cultural issues that you've had internally. That's what I care about. I want to make sure that if people are going to go and take this technology, that they implement it correctly. Tell us kind of what are you finding? And it says, we've had people that have gone and had NDA leaks. They've released financial information that they shouldn't have done to customers. Wow. Because they've gone and asked AI, can you tell me this? And it's giving them an output and they've gone copy, paste, send.
Oh, God.
And the first thing he's turned around and said, it's Copilot, not autopilot. And that's the thing I want people to kind of remember is that it is not here to do your job for you. No matter what AI is here, unless he's going to do some automation in the back end, which is what some of this office productivity is going to do for us, it is here to be an assistant to provide you with 95% of what you is, maybe 99% of it is, but whatever is left, it's still your responsibility to go and check the output, make sure that there is this NDA kind of side of things, and you're not releasing anything that you shouldn't be releasing before you then click on that kind of send button. It also means from a data architecture point of view, a data strategy and a compliance kind of side of things, we need to make sure that we are covering some of these elements of, you know what, we need to give them the best answer. And we shouldn't be giving them an answer based on data that they shouldn't have access to. And that's something we're going to do a bit of a deep dive on today.
Perfect. Sounds amazing.
So one of the first things I actually find interesting is that Microsoft don't actually talk about Copilot very well. And Copilot is a brand name. It's basically their brand name of being able to put products into, AI into any of their products. And that's why I created this cheese wheel. And I love my little cheese wheel. It's got layers into it. So maybe it could have been called an onion wheel, but certainly cheese wheel sounds a little bit better. Your AI companion, your Copilot here is in the center. So if you're talking about Copilot, you could be talking about Windows Copilot. You could be talking about Microsoft 365 Copilot, or you could potentially be talking about any of the other 100 plus different Copilots that are available from a Microsoft kind of side of things. So if you're going to talk about Copilot, think about Windows 11, think about the plugins. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive onto each of these in a minute. But it's really important that you understand that Microsoft Copilot is one thing, that whole ecosystem. Microsoft 365 Copilot is just that kind of top left that you can see of that wheel. So plenty of stuff to be doing from a whole AI kind of side of things. But if we first look at the Windows kind of AI, and kind of see here, this kind of right-hand side of this element is that we've got both the operating system, but we've also got plugin models. I got to speak to some kind of partner integrating with AI. They got kind of pushed by Microsoft. Let's do something with inside of Microsoft 365 chat. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. Why would you not do it directly into Windows 11? Why would you add an extra kind of entry point, a paid extra point to be able to go in, to be able to integrate with something? When we've got this AI companion down the right-hand side, I'm going to bring up the slide just here, that's always available to us from a Windows 11 point of view. Don't you want to integrate with that? Because then even if they have a Microsoft 365 Copilot or not, that's the one that I want them to be integrating with. And I think that's a challenge to any organization, is actually I can integrate any kind of AI into this kind of right-hand side from an application kind of side of things. I just wondered if you guys have seen much of that in kind of your experience at this moment in time, seen anybody kind of thinking of it as, let's not integrate with 365 chat, let's integrate with AI in general and where it is in from a Windows kind of side of things.
So, yes, I mean, yes and no. So a lot of people a lot of customers that I work with are huge organizations. So any AI in the background would certainly help them bring a lot of that context when it comes to documentation and users and user profiles with the documentation itself. But me specifically, the only Bing I've used is the one that's available in the Edge browser. I haven't used it from a corporate perspective. I'm not too sure if you're any different, Nikki.
Yeah, we've got the Bing Chat Enterprise, and we're asked to do our searches in there. So it means that the search prompts are not retained and everything to protect our data. But we haven't done much more with it than that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to get access to the Microsoft 365 Copilot. Obviously, at the moment, there's a restriction of minimum of 300 licenses and being an enterprise customer. I work for an organization where there's only 11 of us, so it might be a long time before they get down to organizations at this size. So
absolutely. And I think it's kind of worth going into that Bing chat. So that bit that you saw just down there on that right hand side that you get with Windows 11 comes with Bing chat, not Bing Chat Enterprise at this moment in time. So what are the differences, I think, is really important. And Nikki, you've already said on this. With Bing Chat Enterprise, which is kind of a customized version of ChatGPT with the Bing index. I think it's the Prometheus, I think is what they call this architecture. And it uses that Bing index to go and find certain results. You go and ask ChatGPT, what's the news today? It goes, I have no idea. I don't keep the information for that long. Wherefore, actually, with Bing Index, you can go off and search Sky News, BBC News, CNN, whatever it may well be that the index is using at that time to give us that information. And that's great. But the prompts that I'm using are going and being used inside of Bing Chat, inside of ChatGPT, and they're being sent off to help train the models even further. You don't want to put that commercial information in there. Samsung have openly admitted that they have put semiconductor code into ChatGPT and had it actually processed and all that kind of thing. And if you think about that's a South Korean company putting something in a North American data center, which is now being used to train, and potentially if you can get the right prompt, you could pull that data out there. Wow. That's scary. And we can't have that happening with any kind of AI where any organization can't control that output. And I think that's why Microsoft released this Bing Chat Enterprise, is that you log in with your work and school account, your entry account. You then have to say, as Nikki said, there's no prompts being saved. They've openly said we're not using it to train these models or anything like that. But you have this ability to be able to go off and start using it from a compliancy and a governance kind of side of things. And because it's also localized, you're also processing it in the right locations, which is also a very important thing when we talk about our whole GRC kind of side of things.
Yeah, indeed. As a compliance person, and I would imagine for every DPO or compliance officer listening to this right now, they'll be like, wow, why would Samsung ever want to do that at this point in time?
I agree. I think there are other architectural things that we have to bear in mind around how some of these things are working. That might give you even more of a headache, and I apologize. Sometimes you talk about compliance, you always seem to deliver headaches. The ChatGPT solution itself, they've got a paid-for model, ChatGPT Pro, as they call it. It gives you access to Vision and a few other kind of applications. One of the things you've got to bear in mind is it also offers people an API with a secret key, which means then you can integrate it into any of your solutions. My challenge to any head of security, CISO, CIO would be is, have you got anybody that's using that API on any Power Apps or Power Automates or any flows? It's not called Flow anymore, is it? It is Power Automate. Because all of a sudden, they may well have created something that says, can you go off, read my email, send it over to ChatGPT through that API, make me a response, and then save it into an Excel spreadsheet? Because you can do that with Power Automate.
Wow.
Can you do that? Are people doing that? Absolutely, they are. I've seen demos
Really?
where people have gone off and absolutely. People have gone off and gone, you know what? I could actually, and they don't understand the compliancy side of things. These power users, they don't understand this kind of element of going, I could get it to be able to, you know what? I can get all the emails that are coming from the help desk. I can get it to read it and try and categorize it for me. And I can have it so it outputs as a power app. Or I could actually get them to put in a help desk form. I get them to fill the form in and it actually tries to categorize things or gives me an output as an automatic reply. But it's using the APIs for ChatGPT. That is not good. We can't have that going on outside the organization.
That is incredible. If I don't even know where to begin with that, to be honest with you, I'm actually speechless. People are actually using that because all of that data that's in that email is then stored outside of your organization. That would give anybody nightmares in a compliance team, or even a CTO, or even anybody that's using that. That's incredible. Wow.
And you're right. And as I say, I'm sorry to deliver more bad news, but my challenge is to go and look at your filtering logs and look at, is anybody using api.chat.openai.com to be able to send these things out there? Companies that I have worked for, I have seen them go, you know what, we're going to have a bit of an innovations lab and allow people to go off and do it. And I'm going, well, okay, let's see what they build. And all of a sudden they're coming back and saying, oh, it goes off to ChatGPT. It goes off and do this. Microsoft have got an answer to this. It's not Bing Chat Enterprise. You can actually build your own OpenAI instance. And that gives you, when you publish it to a web URL, it gives you an API, which means that it's staying inside your organization. But think about different APIs that are external, because it may not just be an AI issue. What else have these power users got the ability to be able to integrate with other API solutions? And have you got a grip on this governance kind of side of things from a Power Automate kind of side of things, not just the fact that it's AI, a Microsoft 365 Copilot or Bing Chat or any of this kind of side of things?
Wow. I just had a visualization of everybody listening or watching this running off, going to look through the firewall logs at this moment in time, Alex.
I'm sorry to the firewall people that have now got a whole bunch of headaches on them as part of it. So it does come down to that Bing Chat and Bing Chat Enterprise. Bing Chat Enterprise does not offer an API. I wish it did, because it'd be great that we can say, you know what, this solution that we are giving you, this solution that we want you to be able to use, we want you to be able to use Bing Chat Enterprise. You can use it inside of Edge. It's a progressive web app on that top right-hand corner. You can go to Google and you go to a URL, and it's got that green protected button on there. And I love the fact that it says protected, because you could train people to say you can only use AI inside this organization if it says green and protected. And if you build anything else moving forward, you could put that green protected onto your own web applications and that kind of side of things. And that also go on, mate. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, okay, that's very good then. So if you can bring that into and bring it in as a standard into your own governance when you're integrating Bing Enterprise to ensure that people do have the right protected Bing that they're using, I think that's a great step from Microsoft.
Absolutely. And I think it gives us comfort. And as I say, it really helps us with that adoption and training kind of side of things. You can use it. It's got protected. Referring back to this screenshot, Windows 11, you can go off, you can do it. You can see it here on the screen right now. It says Copilot with Bing Chat. It doesn't say Bing Chat Enterprise. I'm logged in with this account. When I took this screenshot, I was logged in with a work or school account, an entry account, and it doesn't say protected. Now, it may well be using Bing Chat Enterprise, but it doesn't say that it does. Can I not have a protected button on there as well? So then if I'm going off and releasing it.
Well, if I'm working in compliance or even in security, any information security architect or consultant will look at that and think, that is not Bing Protect and just flatly refuse to use it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the indication being there is going to apply confidence.
It's all part of adoption and training. It's you're right that kind of goes. Isn't it great that Microsoft has started off with this protected thing? It can really help us to be able to train and adopt these things even better. Why can't we have it up there? Just give it to us. We get it in Edge. We open up Edge and we got the panel that opens up and you can switch between M365 chat if you've got the Copilot already and BCE, Bing Chat Enterprise, and it says protected. Let's do it there as well.
I as a user, if I'm using Windows 11, this would be the place I would go rather than have to open Edge and then go into Bing in Edge or whatever the case may be, and then 4 or 5 clicks before I even get to Bing. So this would be my preferred way of using the Copilot. Why not have that in here right now?
I completely agree with you, and I really hope that we're recording this the week before the Microsoft Ignite conference, but I really hope that is something that Microsoft will be announcing, that we've got these enterprise admin kind of features, and I strongly feel that in the cheese wheel, I've already got it prepped on the hope that Microsoft will announce it. There's this inner red circle of enterprise administrative kind of control of how we control all these different elements. So I can take that Bing Chat out of the right-hand side of a Windows 11, and it's using this Bing Chat Enterprise around that protected, secure, and compliant kind of side of environments.
I wish also with this, they would just make it, as well as that wording, make it a little bit more visible, even with the logo or just the name a little bit more, because actually if you kind of look at the two of them within the browser, they do look very similar. I know it has got the kind of protected one, but yeah, if it was a different color logo or something, it would kind of make it even more visible. Red is the public one, red is danger, and have a green logo, for example, meaning it's safe. I'm sure Microsoft won't do that, but for me, it just makes things even easier.
Absolutely. And this AI thing is huge. We know it's going to be huge. And I like the fact that protected, because it's putting people in the right foot grounds to be able to put those foundations and do it. Let's just do it everywhere. Just give us the ability to be able to do it, or give us the ability to add our own logo on any of those kind of side of things as well. So we can say Softcat approved as an example kind of side of things.
Yeah. And I think at that point, you'd get more of an adoption rate, because if you've got a visualization to provide comfort, that comfort then can be passed up to the relevant people who make the decision and say, okay, well, you've provided the fact that this is a safe and secure way of using it. I don't see why we wouldn't use it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And then you go and put it on all your applications. I've hit an approved application. I put an approved kind of solution here, and all of a sudden it helps from I guess from this, any applications we hear that the number one way of people being able to get hacked is some kind of getting in with your account.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden you go in, I don't see that approved logo that I see on every single one. Maybe this is an issue. Maybe I should log this. And it kind of builds that whole broader sense of securing your systems even further, and helps on that training kind of side of things.
Yeah, I agree.
So just kind of looking at the rest of this kind of cheese wheel before we get to the big beans and the Microsoft 365 Copilot, but that plugins and being able to build Adobe Express, bringing in kind of Microsoft have used it as Spotify has been an example where developers get recommended death metal music because they're going to go off and do some coding kind of side of things. But we can also bring in those custom open AI solutions. If AI is going to open down the right-hand side, like we're going to have in Windows 11, and it's always going to be there before I've even opened Teams or Outlook or gone to a browser, why not have all these AI solutions integrated with that rather than Microsoft 365? Because your adoption is going to go through the roof because it's always there for us.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we've got all these other co-pilots. We want to be thinking about things like Fabric. Fabric is an amazing tool to be able to say, you know what, this person has access to this data, and give you large language model responses based on what they can see rather than this kind of open approach. So there's huge options on there. Power BI sits within that. Can you go and build me a dashboard? Click a couple of seconds later, a whole dashboards, and trying to make a dashboard look pretty is going to be the end of the thing now, because you can get AI kind of do it for you, all the way through to Security Copilot and giving you recommendations about what it's seeing in logs, and potentially that automation of AI where it goes off and makes those changes for you automatically at 3 o'clock in the morning because it noted a vulnerability. That's
brilliant.
huge.
That's brilliant.
And why would you not want something like that?
Yeah, indeed. And I think also from a compliance perspective as well, there's lots of scenarios running through my mind right now where you could use this to be proactive with sensitivity labels, downgrades, people downgrading items, and then potentially emailing that downgraded item out and then putting the original file back to the original classification. Even from a DLP perspective as well, if somebody's trying something continuously to try and get it out of the environment, you know, and there's nobody there to monitor those logs, having this in place is such a benefit, especially for large organizations that run a 24/7 business model.
Absolutely. And it's not, go on, sorry, Nikki.
I was to say, it just supports that continuous, assessment and evaluation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so many insurance providers now for cybersecurity want to make sure that your systems are being monitored 24/7. So do you need a managed SOC? Do you need a managed team that's going to be managing these systems and watching your systems when you're asleep? Or are you going to invest in the cybersecurity experts that you need within your organization to be protecting your data on a 24/7? Do you want to build a team of 7, or do you want to go and actually have a team of people that are watching your environment all the time? And that's just another challenge to you, because not because I'm telling you need to buy it, but because your insurance companies are telling you that if you're going to get hacked, you want us to pay out, you need to make sure that you've got this technology in place.
Of course, and why wouldn't they, right? Especially in today's scenarios where, you know, there's a lot of hacking going on globally. I think I read a report the other day, and within Europe, Ireland was the biggest attack surface for hackers. Yeah, Ireland. I think they had a 71% strike rate as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something like 43% in the UK.
Yeah, that's 71% strike rate. So this would be so much more beneficial. But not to digress, I think if you're getting a 71% strike rate, there are some basic fundamentals that you're missing at that point.
No, I do agree with you, and it's looking at what kind of levels of compliancy that you should be putting in place. And when I speak to people around building digital strategies, as an example, I'm saying, what are your compliancy and your regulatory requirements to ensure, and let's deliver it against those rather than what you think might be a good idea, or we're thinking of spending this. No, let's get the basics done first, because if you don't do those, you may or may not have a business in 12 months' time. Because those companies aren't going to keep allowing you to have healthcare record data and that kind of side of things if you don't have that compliancy level, and that's really important.
Yeah, agreed.
So kind of going on to this kind of Microsoft 365 Copilot, I like to talk about it as the woohoo and the headache. So I'm going to leave you with another headache as we kind of finish this podcast. I hate to be the deliverer of bad news, but I think it's so important that we actually talk about the real aspects of kind of Copilot. So when we talk about 365 Copilot, obviously this is a different set of technology than everything else that we've already talked about. It's not a dependency to have any of these. You can do everything in the browser. People keep asking, is Copilot coming to Mac? Well, yeah, it works in a browser. Just open up kind of Office and open up Teams, and you can use it from that point of view. And I can guarantee you it does, because I've tried it on my iPad. I'm lucky enough to have the license through where I work, and I have got that ability to be able to go, you know what, I've got my iPad. I thought, let's try Whiteboard. I opened up Whiteboard yesterday, and I've got Copilot there for me. So it is actually multi-platform already in a way, because of this progressive web applications, which is probably another conversation for another day, and what Microsoft are doing with progressive web applications. Cool. We also have to talk about Copilot Labs, and I actually love this concept of Copilot Labs. I only announced this a couple of months ago, but this is our kind of adoption area to be able to help people to understand prompts and how you can actually use this Microsoft platform for Copilot. And I hope that if this becomes extensible, I hope this becomes an area in which Microsoft can actually make this a platform. So if you're building some kind of center of excellence around AI, that we can go to Copilot Labs to be able to get all the different prompts for all the different solutions that I potentially go off and use, whether that's Fabric or whether it's that. That's a hope. There's a real hope that I hope Microsoft make this Copilot Labs extensible. But what we can do is we get this landing page, and it helps us to understand how we can change the tone. We can summarize meetings, create presentations. It's built into the Copilot product as well. Down the right-hand side, when you open it up inside of PowerPoint and Word, you've got some example prompts. Those example prompts come from this Copilot Labs brand. I just want to put something in there. And some stats that have come out recently is that it seems to be people that have been in the workforce longer get better responses out of AI than people that are kind of just coming into the workforce.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they know the kind of questions to ask, and that comes with experience.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that the platforms are actually supporting those people that are coming into the workplace to be able to still deliver the same kind of output than somebody as it does who's been in there for 20, 30 years, which is a real change of scene, because normally you get it the other way around, don't you? The new people coming in, the younger, they understand these technologies, they can go off and run with it. AI is actually the other way around. And that's a training and an adoption kind of thing that we should be bearing in mind.
Yeah,
So Copilot Labs is everywhere, and I love the idea that this is the first layer you should be looking at. How can we build training material around this? How can we build from an adoption kind of side of things? The next bit is kind of around these applications. We know it's surfaced inside these, whether you've got it opened as a PowerPoint inside of the Teams client, whether you're opening it up in the browser or in the actual applications itself. The application is a bit more challenging because you've got to have this kind of channel, an updated version of Office that's been undone. If it's the progressive web apps in the cloud, it's a bit different. But you've got this Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Loop. Loop's been added to here, a new collaboration product. Should we not be talking more about how the adoption of Loop is going to be needed? It has to be enabled. Do your end user adoption teams now to be considering how we put Loop into here? And until recently, we had to use the new Outlook. I'm not a big fan of the new Outlook, if I'm completely honest with you. It's getting better, but I still can't copy and paste stuff. I still can't use Alt-R to be able to reply to an email. These are simple things that really frustrate. I do a lot of keyboard stuff, right? I see the emails, I press the down button, I press enter, it opens email, I use Alt F4 to be able to close something, hit the Alt R button, so I don't have to keep moving my hand to get to the mouse.
Yeah.
But I can't actually use Alt R. It's just
Control Enter
really
to send
simple for me. No, you have to click the send button.
Oh, come on. Back to the old one. I'm glad I stayed on the old one then.
Yeah, well, the old one's going to have all the Copilot stuff, and they said that's going to come with a November update. So I'm excited to be able to jump back to the old Outlook. Sounds weird. So there's a lot of stuff we have to bear in mind around that kind of adoption kind of side of things. And there is a one notice within that. But we have to talk about Bing Chat, this ability to be able to, 365 chat. We have to understand it, that it's a conversation with your data. And how do you teach people to do a prompt, but how do you teach people to be able to do a conversation with that data and what that really truly means? And when Microsoft first came out, you may well have seen this image. And I like to drill down on one particular bit. But we have it surfaced inside the Microsoft applications. It's using a large language model that might well be multi-gen or auto-gen, but they said openly that it's kind of a customized version of ChatGPT-4. But it says here, Microsoft Graph, your data. And I don't mean your organization data. I mean the data that you have permission to be able to see. Okay. And it's built on top of the Microsoft Graph. And kind of an experience thing for you is that, and this is before AI, this we're talking 4 or 5 years ago, I did a migration for a customer, and we migrated all their kind of content into the cloud from their SharePoint on-prem. And I said to them, look, you're a sixth form college, let's just reset all your permissions, let's do everything you need it to. And they're like, no, we're fine. I was like, no, let's migrate it. Best practice says it's an opportunity for us to move it to the cloud. We can kind of match users, we can do all sorts of security groups, but let's make sure we reset it to ensure that, you know what, you're at a good level. I said, no, we're fine. 6 months later, they logged a call with the help desk and wanted to know why the students that were studying accounting ended up being recommended a file through the Microsoft Graph, which included all the staff wages.
Oh, wow.
The permissions were set so anybody could see that file or that whole SharePoint finance site. So it's not as if the students had hacked it or anything like that. The permissions were not correct and they got recommended it. Now imagining putting AI on top of that.
Yes.
AI is going to elevate answers to you because it's about what data you have access to, not what you should have access to. And there is no should.
Flood. Sorry to cut you off.
Absolutely. No, go on, Ryan.
You're going to get a flood of data that should be extremely private.
Potentially, if you haven't got your data in place and your structure and your governance, your permissions. And obviously, we're not talking about resetting it just now and continue as you are. I know it's about resetting it and putting the governance levels in place to ensure that doesn't become a mess again in the near future.
Because there's even things as simple as, we teach people, don't send attachments, send a sharing link. So you set the sharing link, and by default, a lot of the time it's anybody in the organization. So, I'm working on some, merger and acquisition, and people are inherently lazy, if they don't need to click anything, they don't. File, share, copy link, send to maybe the CEO of the organization, not realizing that the default link is anyone in the organization. So now I've shared a link that anyone in the organization can potentially view, even though I've only shared it with one individual. So it's kind of the ways that people are working, even from the really fundamental ways, let alone having, you know, container labels and sensitivity labels on your files.
Absolutely. And there are so many challenges around this, and that's just one scenario. Think of another one. Have you ever accidentally sent an email to somebody that you shouldn't have sent it to? Oh, sorry, you shouldn't have got that. Have you ever recalled the email because technically they've now got that data?
Yep.
And we should be doing more recalling emails, because if they're not supposed to have it, don't give it to them, because AI is going to give them a chance to be able to build a response based on what you've accidentally sent them.
Oh, wow. So it begs a question. What really needs to be in place before anybody even starts to think about enabling or rolling out Copilot?
Absolutely. And with that, I built this little pyramid.
Cool.
As it is. And you can kind of see at the very top here, we've got Copilot, the cherry on top, the diamond on the top of the pyramid. We've got the large language models. We've got the Microsoft Graph kind of sitting there. And we have to start talking about data tagging, data retention. We have to say this is private and confidential, which means that Copilot's not going to really look at it to be able to build it out. It may well be commercially sensitive. So actually, we want to see Copilot telling us, we're going to give you this information, but it shouldn't be shared. That's where I want to see more features kind of coming with Copilot. We're not seeing Microsoft say that, because I still want to be able to talk to my data, but I just want to make sure that I understand that this is private and shouldn't be said out. So if I've got 4 or 5 different tags, tell me the response for each of those areas. So then I know from an end user kind of side of things that I can use this to go public. This one I can't, but at least I've still got that knowledge. That's important about chatting to our data kind of side of things. Data retention is so key. You should be keeping data for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. But if you're giving them a response and the data comes back about, let's say it's a customer about a deal, but that data was from 14 years ago and it's built them a response, you shouldn't be doing that. You could have a GDPR breach based on the fact that you're sending somebody a response that to the end user looks absolutely fine, but the response should never have been half built because that data shouldn't have been there in the first place.
That's a very good point and a worrying point.
So
even with the retention side of things, we need to be careful, because obviously for compliance reasons, you might need to keep those previous contracts and proposals for the last 7 years. But if you're working on a new proposal, even though it's retained, it might not be current. You know, you might only say, well, I need to have my current prices. So I don't want it from last year. So again, it's how do we make sure that we target the responses to get you kind of your current data, rather than data that genuinely needs to be in retention but shouldn't be used as a reference source.
Absolutely. And that's why that data accuracy kind of comes in. Let's say I go and ask Microsoft 365 Copilot, how much holiday do I have? How much notice do I have to give for my holiday? And it may well say 2 weeks, right? But what does that look like for a HR representative that has access to the draft version, that previous version of that, and all that kind of stuff? Because all of a sudden they might get 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 months, and all of a sudden it's not 2 weeks. So what is the answer? I'm not saying you need to go and check every single file, but you do need to make sure that through this tagging that you've now got draft and published, rather than just whether it is internal, private and confidential, or that kind of side of things.
Okay, so that tagging then just works based on the context that you apply to a particular file. Because you could say discontinued and current, and it will basically look at those, Alex, and start to bring the current ones in as relevant, knowing that the fact that they're the ones to present.
Yes, that's what we need to be. We should be doing it anyway. In all fairness, it's not AI is not the problem here. This is what we should be doing from our data strategy in the first place. We should not be holding data for longer than we should do because GDPR says so, or whatever regulatory solution that tells us, FSA. We shouldn't be holding financial data for more than kind of 7 years. I know a particular company that got hacked and they had 13 years worth of financial records stolen. Can you imagine the fine they're going to get from the ICO because of that? Because they're not putting these compliancy tools in place. It's not good. So we should only be keeping data that we should be doing because the law says so. And then AI should only give us a response based on the data that we should also be having. So AI is just kind of that as I said, that top of the pyramid around everything that we're already doing. And the
Yeah.
companies that have got this nailed already mean that they are AI ready to go. And that's an important thing to remember, is that there are organizations that can go now and go off and deploy it because they've got this in structure. The ones that haven't may well very quickly turn Copilot off because they're not confident, or the response that are being given to a user that is asking a genuine question that is doing Copilot, not autopilot, then means all of a sudden that actually you're giving them stuff that they shouldn't have done. And that's an IT issue or a DPO issue, not a training or an adoption issue.
Yeah, for sure. Just going back to the data point there, I've found, and I think we've spoken about this before, Nikki, and with other people as well, there's such a trend of hoarding data rather than deleting data. I understand the concept, data needs to be, there has to be a defensible disposal program in place, but I can pretty much say 99.9% of the businesses that I work with now and have worked with in the past with compliance do not delete data regularly. Do not do that. So this could be your best friend or your worst enemy, enabling Copilot.
I'm giving you a headache.
Sorry, Nikki, go on.
I say I know companies that need to kind of retain data, haven't got retention policies in place. So they've got like holds on everything. So somebody leaves and they just put everything on hold. So everything is being retained forever. So, even people's mailboxes, because there might be a case later on in the future where there might be something in somebody's OneDrive or somebody's email, and they're in kind of that state of they have no idea of what data is stored where. So they are frightened to put any form of retention on just in case they delete something. And of course, when you're talking about millions and millions of files, people aren't going to be wading through stuff. So I think, people are just storing stuff just in case.
And I think if you look at it from us as maybe consumers rather than businesses, let's just say it's a car crash as an example, right? And that insurance company go and look at your records and go, well, what's happened over the last 5 years? Maybe that's how long they have to do it for. But actually, they've been keeping it for 10 years and they see they had an accident that was exactly the same 10 years ago. Their frame of mind of what they think of you is going to be different to necessarily would be if they saw nothing for 5 years. They shouldn't be keeping that data. And you are now, as the consumer, you're having a very different experience with them because they're not doing data retention, and that is against the law.
Indeed. Indeed.
And just to kind of finish off the foundations for this pyramid, as kind of as a last slide here, what else can we put into the cloud? This actually is an opportunity now. We can chat with our data, and let's finish with a positive that we can chat with our data. We can put it into the right data tags, and there are vendors out there that help with being able to put and do automatically tagging and putting it into migrating it into right locations. But what else can you put in there now so that when a user goes and chats with Microsoft 365 chat and looks at your data inside of Microsoft 365, what else could it actually, can you help them to get an even better output with Microsoft 365 Copilot? So have you woohoo, go and play with the ability to record meetings and chat the data. And I've got some great examples that I've used that I'm going to kind of bring out on my YouTube channel around how that's kind of been used. But at the same time, don't just enable it. Don't just go, woohoo, I want to go off and talk about this and we can go off and do this. You've got to get your head around this. Because if you don't, you might well very quickly turn it off.
And on that bombshell, I think that's a great podcast. So Alex, thanks for coming on. I think there's a lot of things to think about there. We will include Alex's information in the bio in the YouTube and also on Spotify as well, if anybody wants to link in with Alex and watch his current or future videos. So once again, Alex, thanks for joining us. This has been really, really interesting.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.